Hi, it's Scout. Welcome back to my channel. I figured for my first sit-down video, a good thing to do would be to tell you guys my top 10 favorite books of all time to kind of get you acquainted with my reading style, my reading tastes. We're sitting in front of the shelves and there are some books gone, as you can see, and those are some of the books we're going to be talking about, so ignore the gaps in the shelves. I picked 10 books, but honestly, I could have picked 20. So, these were the best of the best made the cut. I'm not going to go in any specific order except for the fact that I'm going to talk about my 3 all-time favorites first. So let's get into that. My all-time favorite book is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. The entirety of the Raven cycle is my favorite series of all time. There's 4 books in it. They have a whole shelf over there. My actual favorite book in the series is either The Dream Thieves or Blue Lily Lily Blue, which is the second and the third. But The Raven Boys follows this group of teens. We have Blue, who is the only girl in our main cast, and she is in a family of psychics, but she's the only one who is not psychic. But she does have this strength to make their powers stronger when she's with them. So at the beginning of the book, she goes to this church with them on this day where they see all the souls of the people who are going to die within the next year, and she sees a boy there. And the prophecy kind of says that if you are not a psychic and you see somebody on that line, either they're your one true love or you're going to be the person who kills them. Intense. And she has always had her family tell her that they have seen that she is going to kill her one true love by kissing him. If she kisses somebody, they die. And one day she meets him and his friends, Gansey and his 3 friends, Adam, Ronan, and Noah, at the restaurant that she works at, the cafe that she works at. And they start this quest to find this king who has been dead for a very, very, very long time that Gansey thinks is buried somewhere in this town. And if they wake them, then he'll grant one wish of theirs. The reason I love this book so much is it has the best found family I have ever read, and found family is everything to me, everything. I hold such a special place in my heart for these characters. I also think Maggie Stiefvater's writing is really great. It's very lyrical and just pretty, and it's kind of everything I love in a book. And the romances, the slow burn romances in this series, A+. My next favorite book is one that I consider to be very underrated, so please read it. This is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This is a young adult magical realism following 2 sisters who live on this island called By the Sea. You have Georgina and Mary, they're twin sisters, and they're about to turn 18 at the beginning of this book, and they are part of a family, the Fernway family, where every single woman in their family has powers, and they get them by the time they're 18. Mary is already showing these powers where she can float. She just floats, she doesn't fly. But Georgina has still yet to gain her powers, and it's the summer leading up to their birthday and them they've just graduated high school, they're going to college. There's also this thing about their island where they have this bird that comes only to their island, and people travel from all over the place to come and bird watch this bird. And their family knows that it's actually a girl from their family who her power was flying and she became a bird and comes back to this island because it's her home. And one summer, the bird does not show up. After this party, Mary, her sister, starts acting kind of weird. And so it's a mystery about what happened to the bird, what's happening to Mary, and Georgina trying to find her powers. And it is spectacular. The meaning of this story, the atmosphere of it is something that I've never read in any other book. It has a definite tone shift about halfway through the book. It's kind of a lighter summary read at the beginning here, and then you have a significant shift in tone to a darker tone in the book. And this is just everything to me. I think this book is so well done. Probably one of the best young adult books I've ever read. Probably the best young adult book I've ever read. I think it is just something really special, and it pains me that it doesn't get as much recognition as it deserves. Yeah, I tell everybody to read this book, even full-grown adults. So read it, even if you don't think young adults are thick. My next favorite is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alir Sans. I don't know how you say his last name. I'm so sorry. This is the anniversary edition, the 10th anniversary edition. It is so pretty. It's my prized possession. I have probably reread this book 10 times. Genuinely, it is the easiest book ever to read. All 3 of these books are interchangeable for my favorite of all time, but Aristotle and Dante really does have a special place in my heart. I read it for the first time when I was 13, and it really helped me throughout middle school, trying to figure out who I was, in the sense of Ari goes through a lot of just becoming a teenager type thing, and trying to figure out like where he fits in and like what's going through his own head. He has a lot of internal struggles within this book. So this starts when Aristotle is 15 in Texas. It takes place in the 80s, and it starts one summer where he meets this boy, Dante, at a local pool, and he teaches him how to swim. And it's really just the story of their friendship every single summer, a few school years, and it becoming more than a friendship. But this book, what it does so spectacularly well is the character development of these two teen boys, specifically Ari, becoming a teenager and discovering who they are, not just in terms of like their sexuality, but like where they fit in the world, why they feel the way that they feel. Ari holds a lot of internal anger because his brother went to prison when he was very young, and his parents refused to explain any of it to him, and he's just confused about things a lot of the time. This book means so much to me, and I love it, love it, love it. It's a very simple book. It doesn't do too much. The chapters are short. It's not trying to like make you think about things too much, but it is beautifully done. The writing is exceptional, and I just love it so much. You probably saw, if you watched my last video, I have an Aristotle and Dante shirt that I wear. I was wearing it in the outro of that video. Okay, now we're getting a little bit out of order. I'm just showing them however I feel like. My next one is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This probably seems a little bit different than the things that I had earlier, but this is my favorite adult romance. I think that it does adult romance in such a good way where it is truly so much more than a romance. When I first read this book, I was not expecting much from it, and I think that's why I loved it so much. I definitely thought it was just going to be like a fun summary read. It is not just a fun summary romance. This book holds so much more within it, and it's not, maybe your one complaint about it would be it is not a beach read. So this follows January and Gus, and January and Gus are both authors, but they write completely different genres. January writes like best-selling adult romance, and Gus writes like acclaimed literary fiction. And they went to college together and had like kind of a little bit of a rivalry going on between them. And in the future, January's father, when he passes away, leaves her a beach house, and she goes to live in it just really to get everything out of it and sell it because her and her father were having a lot of issues right before he passed away. Um, and when she moves in there, she realizes that Gus has the house next door. And they are both in major writing slumps. And so they decide to swap genres and write each other's typical genre throughout this summer. And they like help each other go on little day trips to help them write the book. It's very cute. This book, both of the characters are just so amazing. So amazing. January and Gus are such well drawn out, developed romance characters that I would not expect in a book this short. They both have so many problems, but they work through them together and they make each other better through them. And it's just a beautiful story. It's a story about grief and loving yourself and seeing the good in yourself. And I just think I love this book. I obviously, when I read this for the first time, like I said, I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. And I was just like, I talked about this book nonstop for like 3 months. It's amazing. Next one, I feel like you probably expected this if you were peeking at the shelf. My next book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Leigh Bardugo is, I think, one of my favorite overall authors. I think she does what she does so well. She is an amazing fantasy writer. She writes great worlds. She builds them up very well. She writes amazing characters that you really want to root for in these tough situations. Six of Crows is about six teens in the world of Ketterdam, and they have to go on this heist to get this person who is, oh my god, this is so hard to explain. They have to get this person who is the only person who can come up with a cure for this thing that's going around and making the magical people of the world like exceptionally strong, and bad people are controlling them. But these 16s are not what you would call good people necessarily. You learn more about them and you understand where they're coming from, but they are very morally gray, all of them. They are like not afraid to be killing people, you know? You have Kaz, Inej, Jesper, Nina, Wylan, and Matthias. And all of these characters mean the entire world to me. I need to reread this book series so bad. The second book is just as good as the first, which is something I do not feel very often about fantasies that I love, but the second book is just as good as this first one. Like, you have to read both of them. Do not just read the first one. She does such a good job in this book of fleshing out these characters and their backstories and making you understand them and care about them so much. They all have awful backstories, like Kaz and Inej especially. they have gone through it. And you are just always rooting for the best for them and like praying that they make it out of these very dire situations alive. This book is so exceptionally well done. The world is amazing. The heist is amazing. Everything about it is amazing. If you like fantasy, you need to read this, and that's as much as I can say about it. Another romance on the list we have From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I had a tough time choosing between this and All Roads Lead Here by her because both of them I gave 5 stars and I love both of them. Mariana Zapata writes very long, very slow burn romances. If it's not your thing, don't read her books. Me personally, slow burn is my favorite trope in romance books. So this one follows Jasmine and Ivan, who are figure skaters, and Jasmine and Ivan like bicker at each other all the time because Ivan is Jasmine's best friend's older brother, but Ivan is like the best of figure skaters. He has won so many gold medals. He's like done all kinds of crazy things. And Jasmine was in pair skating, but now has had to move to solo because her pairs partner was awful. You get a little bit of the backstory in this. But Ivan's partner is out for the season, and he needs a partner to skate with him for this season. So it's like they have to get together and do this very quickly. And he picks Jasmine. And Jasmine has no idea why. She's like, why would you do this? We literally hate each other. But then they skate together and they learn to deal with each other. And then they learn to like each other and be friends. And then they learn to be something more than that. And I love this book so much. This to me is like the perfect, just feel good romance. If you are okay with reading 600 something pages of it. This may be one of her shorter ones. Oh, 530. That's not even that much. I love everything about this book. The characters are amazing. The romance is superb. Absolutely spectacular. I was rereading it, apparently. I forgot I was rereading it. The romance is absolutely superb. Everything about it. Perfect. Perfect. I love them with everything in me. Another fantasy. Obviously, my 2 favorite genres are fantasy and romance. This one is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. Legendborn follows this girl named Bree. She's 16, going to like an early college thing at UNC. And part of the reason why she wants to go there is that her mother recently passed away and she thinks that she was killed. And she decides to go to the college that her mother went to so that she can learn more about her, see if there's anything there that could help her try to figure out what happened with her mother. And on Bree's first night there at a party, she sees some dude with sparks flying out of his hands kill a monster. And she's like, what the heck? And nobody remembers it because he wipes all their memories, but she remembers it, even though he tried to wipe her memories. And she discovers that there is a secret society at this college, and the secret society is all descendants of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I love King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And these people are descendants, or they can be like given over their powers. And so you don't have to be a literal descendant of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So she gets close to this guy, Nick, who's in it. And she decides, or Nick is not in it anymore. He's been having some issues with it. And she decides that she is going to become part of the secret society because she thinks that it had something to do with her mother's death. Whew, this book has so many amazing things about it. This book is spectacular because it is, first of all, an amazing fantasy with a great magic system and like a well drawn out world. But it also has more to it within Bree's powers. I can't tell too much because it would be spoilers, but she has a lot of power within her blood and her heritage. And oh my gosh, there are some scenes relating to that magic that are amazing. So, so, so good. It's a book that covers a lot of important topics, specifically racism and sexism. She takes them head on, Tracy Dion, and she does amazing with it. I feel like this is kind of a perfect young adult fantasy. I don't really know why you wouldn't like it, to be honest, unless you're just not a fantasy fan and you feel like you can't understand the world fully. But I love it. I'm currently making my dad read it, if that says anything. We're getting near the end, y'all. Getting near the end. Next up is the first time we've had an author for the second time, and this is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I told you guys she's probably one of my favorite authors, especially within fantasy, because she knows what she's doing and she does it well. And this is her adult fantasy. This follows this girl named Alex, and she can speak to ghosts. That's the book. I'm just kidding. She can speak to ghosts, and she gets accepted, pulled into Yale, where she is brought there specifically to be this kind of police officer over the supernatural happenings at Yale. Her and her mentor, I totally just lost his name. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read this. They go and they check in on Yale's different fraternities, which are actually secret societies who do things like exorcisms and weird blood rituals and all kinds of weird supernatural things. And they go there to make sure that nothing goes wrong, basically. But in this book, a murder has happened, and then a series of murders starts happening, and Alex investigates the murders. Also, there is the storyline that her mentor, he's like 2 grades above her. You kind of have the idea that they've got a little bit of a romantic something going on, has gone missing, and we think that he has been taken by some supernatural entity. This book is just really good. It does what it does perfectly. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I love it so much. Like I said, Lee Bardugo is just a master of her craft, and I think that it's just a really good book. It's dark academia, but it's fantasy. So if you don't like the drawing on that happens in dark academia, this is for you. It's happening at a college. There is fraternity things happening, but it's not as dark academia as it could be. I cannot wait to read the sequel. It's been sitting on my shelf since it came out, so I need to read it. Next up, the one before I last, is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is kind of a weird one for my top 10, I feel like. I own every single Cassandra Clare book, but I would not necessarily call her my favorite author. But Chain of Gold did something to me. The Infernal Devices is like considered her best series by most people, and I gave every single book in that series like 2 stars. So when I read this book, because my friend loved it, I was like, what am I getting myself into? And then I was hooked within the first chapter. I don't know, y'all. I think her writing must have gotten significantly better in the years since she released those books to this book, because there's just something special about this one. Or maybe it's the characters. I think it may be the characters. I didn't feel as connected to characters in some of her earlier books. And then this one, I was just like, every character I was in love with, and I wanted to be friends with them. And I just love these. So this one follows James and Cordelia are our main 2 characters. They are some of the descendants. Actually, in this one, they're like the precursors, because this is, I think, one of the first books. No, Infernal Devices comes before it. The whole universe is confusing. So in this one, a series of demon attacks has started happening, where they're not like the demons that the shadow hunters are used to. They can walk in daylight. They are like much stronger, and it's really hard for them to fend them off. And so that's the storyline of them trying to kill these demons going on. And then you also have Cordelia has moved back to London, where this is set, and she is joining this friend group again of people that she has been friends with for most of her life. Primarily James and Lucy, who are brother and sister, and then you've also got Matthew and Anna, and there's a bunch of other characters. But Cordelia has also always harbored this secret love for James. So there is, of course, romance like there is in every single Cassandra Clare book, but this one is just spectacular. I love these characters. I love this storyline. I love everything about it. I annotated it when I first read it, which I was not expecting to do. I read it on a road trip and finished it in like 2 days, even though this is a freaking huge book, and annotated the whole thing, and I was like, I'm hooked forever. And now I will read whatever Cassandra Clare writes, even if I feel like I may not like it, because who knows, it could be a chain of gold. Last one, if you watched my last video, this was actually a book I read in that. And when I was thinking through all-time favorite books, I couldn't come up with one that I thought beat this. And that really says me, because I literally read it last week. But I feel like it is just a book I'm going to think about forever, and I just want to talk about it. And honestly, if I wasn't talking about this book, I may be talking about her other book, Song of Achilles, but I'm going to talk about Circe in this one. Circe by Madeline Miller is a retelling, reimagining of the story of Circe in Greek mythology. She's mostly known for bringing Odysseus onto her island and turning them all into pigs. But she doesn't have much of a story besides that in actual Greek mythology. But in this, it goes over her growing up, her like being banished to the island, and all these things that she does before the Odysseus story and after the Odysseus story. This is an amazing feminist retelling. It's a story of motherhood and agency and finding your power as a woman, and I am going to think about this forever. Madeline Miller has probably the best writing of anyone I've read. If I am just talking about truly writing, I think she is the best I've read. Maybe writing style wise, I'd put other people above her, but her writing is beautiful, and I get why it takes her so long to release a book. Like, it's been a long time since she's released this, and there hasn't been a new one except a novella, but I get it, because I'm sure the next one's going to be a masterpiece as well. It's just beautiful. It is everything. It is, if you have even a small inkling that you would like to read this book, you need to read it. Just trust me. It's not the kind of book I would typically think I would like, and I loved it. So I think you would love it as well. There we go. So there are my top 10 books of all time. I am terrified this is about to fall. I hope you liked this video, and I hope it helped you understand my reading taste a little bit. So maybe you know if you agree on things with me. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.